It started with a joke I wasn't supposed to remember. But I still do. Now I see you're all grown up, she said, standing on my porch with a half smile and a bottle of red wine. It was my birthday, and my neighbor Clara had just turned an ordinary evening into something I couldn't forget. I laughed, trying to play along, and replied, "So, where's my gift?" She tilted her head, studying me for a moment. "Maybe I already gave it," she said quietly, her eyes glinting in the porch light. I didn't know then that this moment would change everything. My name's Noah. I'm 24, and until that night, I thought I understood what loneliness felt like. I had a small house in a quiet suburb, a steady job fixing things no one else wanted to deal with, and a routine that kept me safe from surprises. After my last breakup, I promised myself to keep life simple. No drama, no emotional risks, just work, bills, and silence. Then Clara moved in across the street. She was 34, confident, but calm, the kind of woman who looked like she'd already lived several lives and learned from each one. Most days, I'd see her watering the flowers in her yard, wearing jeans and a soft white shirt, hair tied loosely, eyes hidden behind dark glasses. Sometimes she'd wave. Other times, she just smiled faintly and went back to her world. I told myself she was just my neighbor, nothing more. But the night she showed up with that bottle of wine, everything shifted. She said she'd seen me sitting alone on the porch and thought I could use some company. I told her she guessed right. We sat outside as the sun went down, the sky burning orange and violet over the rooftops. She poured 2 glasses and asked how old I was now. 24. I said, "Oh, you." She laughed softly. "You're not supposed to ask a lady that." "Then don't call me grown up," I teased. "Fair enough." She said, "I'm 34, still young enough to know better, old enough not to care." There was something in her tone, something light but also sad. We talked for hours about work, mistakes, old dreams that never quite happened. She told me her marriage ended 2 years ago. I didn't ask why, but she said it anyway. He made me feel invisible. I wanted to tell her I understood, but my words stuck in my throat. Maybe because I knew that feeling too well. The air grew colder, and she wrapped her arms around herself. Without thinking, I handed her my jacket. She hesitated, then took it, her fingers brushing mine. It was such a small thing, barely a second, but the silence that followed carried more weight than all our words. "You shouldn't be out here alone," I said. "Neither should you," she replied when she finally stood to leave. She smiled in that quiet, tired way people do when they're both grateful and afraid of wanting too much. "Thank you for the company, birthday boy," she said. "And happy birthday." "Still waiting on that gift," I said, half joking, half hoping. She turned at the gate. "Maybe you'll find it," she said. "But not tonight." After she left, I sat there listening to the crickets and the hum of distant traffic. The wine glass still held her lipstick mark. I told myself it was just a kind gesture from a friendly neighbor. Nothing more. But deep down, I knew something had changed. The next morning, I found an envelope on my porch. Inside was a simple card that read, "Your gift. Share the next coffee." No signature, just her handwriting. I looked across the street. Her curtains were open, but she wasn't there. Still, I couldn't help smiling. It had been a long time since someone made me look forward to tomorrow. And though I didn't know what that coffee would bring, I knew one thing for sure. My birthday wish had already started coming true. I found her card again the next morning, as if the ink had settled overnight. "Your gift, share the next coffee," felt like a dare. I showered, changed my shirt twice, and crossed the street before I could talk myself out of it. Clara opened in a soft sweater and jeans, hair pinned back. "You came," she said, relief and caution in one breath. She poured 2 mugs and slid one toward me like a promise. "I don't usually invite neighbors in," she said, "but yesterday felt different. Different good, different honest." She studied me. "You look younger today. That's nerves." We laughed. She asked about my work. I told her about leaky pipes and the pride of fixing what others abandon. When she spoke about her job, late emails, tight budgets, decisions at midnight, her voice softened. "I got used to doing everything myself," she said. It's efficient. It's also exhausting. I know that trick. I said, calling independence a virtue when you're just tired of asking. Something eased. She gestured to the living room. A lamp keeps flickering. Would you mind? I didn't. We crouched by the end table, shoulders almost touching. The bulb buzzed, stubborn and faint. I unplugged the cord and found a frayed section. Loose contact, I said. Easy fix. You say that like a magician, she teased. No, like a man who reads instructions. She handed me a toolkit and knelt beside me. Our hands overlapped. Neither of us moved. I repaired the wire and the lamp returned to a steady circle of light. See, I said. Not magic. Feels like it. She didn't look away. Thank you. We sat back on the rug. The silence felt full. A friendly knock cut through it. Mr. Collins peered through the screen. Morning, Clara. Morning, Noah. His grin had the sharpness of gossip. Just checking on the street. Nice teamwork. He nodded at the lamp and left. Clara rubbed the bridge of her nose. He's kind. He also narrates our lives for sport. I don't mind, I said. Let them narrate. She studied me. You will if it turns cruel. The sky darkened. Rain started drumming the windows. She reached for mail on the console. I need to drop this off before it soaks. I grabbed my jacket and an umbrella. I've got you. The words came before I could weigh them. On the porch, the rain blew sideways. I held the umbrella over us and lifted my collar around her neck. She pressed closer to fit, practical, and something more. A drop clung to her lashes. I brushed it away with my thumb. You're too kind, she said. That's why I'm afraid. Afraid of what? Of wanting to keep this. We walked to the mailbox and back slow as if distance could make time behave. At her door, she hesitated. Noah, she said. I've made mistakes by moving too fast. I don't want to break what feels steady. Then let's be steady, I said. One coffee at a time. A warmth crossed her face. Relief. A flicker of trust. She took my hand, not to pull me closer, just to rest for a heartbeat. We let it be enough for now. That was everything. When the rain softened, I said I should go. She walked me to the steps. Same time tomorrow, she asked, her half-smile returning. Tomorrow, I said, I'll bring the good beans. I didn't notice my shoes squeaking until I reached my door. At my door, I set down the umbrella and washed yesterday's glass. In the quiet that followed, a truth named itself. It wasn't the coffee I wanted most, but the steadiness we'd promised without saying. 2 hands under one umbrella. A light that didn't flicker. Her ex showed up 3 days later. I didn't see him arrive, but I heard the voice. Too loud, too sure of itself. I was fixing the gutter when the sound of Clara's name froze me. Through the maple trees, I saw him at her porch, tall, sharp suit. The kind of man who never asks but assumes he's welcome. Clara's posture said everything. Arms crossed, shoulders tense. The distance between them could have been a mile. I didn't mean to eavesdrop, but his tone made it impossible not to. You can't just erase a marriage, he said. I came to talk. I told you, Evan. There's nothing to talk about. He stepped closer, blocking her doorway. So this is it. You're really done pretending you didn't make a mistake. She didn't flinch. Leaving you was the first thing I've done right in years. My hand gripped the gutter until it creaked. When he turned, our eyes met across the yard. That smug half-smile said he'd already decided who I was. The kid next door. Nothing to worry about. Nothing real. That night she came over. No wine, no jokes, just quiet. I opened the door and she stood there, hair damp from the mist, eyes hollow from holding too much in. Can I stay for a minute? She asked. You don't have to ask. We sat on the couch, the rain whispering against the window. She told me Evan had left her a note. You'll come back to me. You always do. She handed me the crumpled paper. I didn't want to read it, but I did. Felt like touching something rotten. He doesn't get to talk to you like that, I said. She gave a half-smile. You sound protective. I admitted, because you deserve better than ghosts who won't stay buried. For a moment, the only sound was the ticking clock. Then she leaned forward, elbows on her knees. I shouldn't have come, she whispered. Then why did you? She looked up, because being here feels safe. I didn't know what to say. Instead, I reached over and covered her hand with mine. Her fingers tightened slightly like she needed to make sure I was real. The thunder rolled outside. The lights flickered. She exhaled slow. He used to hate storms, she said. Said they reminded him of chaos. I used to love them, then love them again. I said, you don't owe him your peace. She turned her head toward the window, the faint glow tracing her face. You're not like him. I hope not. No, you listen. The next thunderclap made her jump. Just a little. Instinctively, I reached out. She didn't pull away. My arms circled her shoulders and she leaned in until her head rested against my chest. I could feel her heartbeat, uneven, searching. We stayed like that for a while, watching the storm break apart. No words, no plans, just two people finding shelter in each other's silence. When the rain eased, she sat up, eyes still bright with the reflection of street lights. You should lock your doors tonight, she said quietly, just in case he comes back. I will, I said. But what about you? I'll be fine. I didn't believe her, but I nodded anyway. At the door, she paused. You shouldn't get involved, Noah. He doesn't take losing. Well, too late, I said. I already care. Her breath caught just for a second. Then she whispered, good night, and stepped into the damp air. When the door closed, I leaned against it, listening to the storm fade. On the coffee table lay the note she'd given me. I read it once more, then tore it clean in half. That night I couldn't sleep. Every car that passed made me think of headlights stopping in front of her house. Around midnight, I walked to the window and saw her bedroom light still on. She was standing there, phone in hand, staring at something I couldn't see. Then, as if she felt me watching, she looked up. We didn't wave. We didn't need to. There was something unspoken between us now. Something fragile but real. I don't know when I fell asleep, but before I did, one thought kept circling in my mind. I wasn't just the neighbor anymore. And for the first time in years, I didn't want to be invisible either. Rumors travel faster than truth in quiet neighborhoods. By the end of the week, it seemed everyone knew about the young guy and the woman across the street. Mr. Collins gave me a knowing wink when I passed his mailbox. Two women walking their dogs paused mid-conversation as I jogged by. The smiles were polite, but the air had changed. I tried to ignore it, but Clara couldn't. She avoided morning coffee that day. Curtains stayed closed. I stood at my window for a while, wondering if I'd done something wrong. Finally, I crossed the street and knocked. When she opened the door, she looked tired. Makeup gone, hair loose, a fragile version of her usual composure. Hey, I said softly. You okay? She forced a smile. Just tired. People talk. It's what they do. I don't care what they say. But I do, she said. I've rebuilt my life once already, Noah. I don't want it undone by whispers. There was nothing I could say to fix it. But I wanted her to see my face, not just hear my words. Then let's give them something real to talk about, I said, half joking. For the first time in days, she laughed. A small, reluctant laugh, but real. You're impossible. Persistent, I corrected. And maybe hungry. That's how we ended up driving to the river. A quiet spot she used to visit as a kid. She packed sandwiches and a blanket. I brought coffee and a speaker. The sun hung low, painting the water gold. We sat under an old oak tree, our shoes off, the grass damp beneath us. She leaned back on her elbows, eyes closed, listening to the music. For a while, neither of us spoke. It was enough to just exist in the same air. Then she said, you know, I used to believe love was supposed to be loud, big gestures, promises, fireworks. Now I think it's just showing up, being kind when it's easier not to. I looked at her profile. The way the wind lifted strands of her hair sounds like you're describing yourself. She opened her eyes. Maybe. Or maybe I'm describing what I hope still exists. We didn't plan the kiss. It just happened. Slow, inevitable. She turned her head. Our hands brushed. And in that small motion, the world stopped. Her lips tasted like coffee and rain. When we pulled apart, neither of us spoke. We didn't need to. Everything was there in the silence. On the drive home, she rested her head against the window, smiling faintly. "This feels dangerous," she said. "Why?" "Because I can actually see myself falling for you." I wanted to say, "Then fall." But instead, I just reached over and let my hand rest over hers. When we pulled into the driveway, her car lights caught a figure waiting near my porch. Muffled shouting broke the calm. "Lily, my ex," arms folded, tears sharp in her voice. "So it's true," she said. "You and her." Clara stiffened beside me. "Lily, this isn't the time," I said. "It never is for you, is it? You just disappear. And then you move on like I meant nothing." Clara opened her door quietly, ready to leave. But Lily's words followed her. "She's too old for you, Noah. Everyone's laughing behind your back." Something in me snapped. "That's enough," I said, stepping closer. "You don't get to talk about her like that." Lily's face softened for a moment, as if realizing she'd gone too far. "You've changed," she said bitterly. "Maybe that's the point." She walked off into the night. When I turned back, Clara was gone. Her porch light was off. House dark. I stood there in the drizzle, feeling like I'd broken something I couldn't name. For the next few days, she didn't answer my texts or calls. Even Mr. Collins looked at me differently, like he knew something I didn't. Every night, I found myself glancing toward her window, hoping to see a light flicker on. Nothing. Then one evening, while walking home from work, I saw her car missing and a sign staked into her lawn for sale. The words hit like a punch. That night, I sat on my porch under the same sky where everything had begun. Wine, laughter, the birthday joke that had started it all. I kept replaying her voice in my head. "I can actually see myself falling for you." Now she was gone, and I didn't even know if I should chase her. Maybe she needed space. Maybe she was protecting me from the storm that followed her. Or maybe I realized I was the one who needed to prove that what we had wasn't just a rumor. It was real. The for sale sign stood crooked on her lawn, half tilted by the wind. It looked like an ending written in capital letters. I'd been staring at it for 10 minutes before I finally crossed the street. Her windows were dark. The porch light she always left on was gone. For a moment, I thought I was too late. The next morning, I found her at the cafe by the river, the same one where we'd once laughed about burnt coffee and second chances. She sat near the window, hands wrapped around a mug that had long gone cold. When she saw me, she didn't look surprised, just tired. "I was hoping you'd come," she said. "I almost didn't," I admitted. "Didn't know if you'd want me to." She sighed, eyes drifting to the glass. "Everyone talks, Noah, about me, about you, about things they don't understand. I thought maybe leaving would make it easier." "Easier for who?" "For both of us." I sat across from her. "Running isn't easier. It's just quieter." She smiled sadly. "You sound older than 24. Maybe you made me that way." The corner of her mouth lifted, but her eyes glistened. "You shouldn't have to fight my battles. You deserve someone uncomplicated." "I don't want uncomplicated." I said, "I want real. And you're the most real thing that's ever happened to me." For a moment, she said nothing, just stared at me as if memorizing every word. Evan came by again. She finally said, "He told me I'd regret this." "And do you?" She hesitated. "Only the part where I hurt you." "You didn't," I said. "You just made me want to be better." The silence stretched. Outside, the rain began. Light at first, then steady. The same kind of rain that had followed us from the beginning. She reached into her purse, pulled out a small envelope, and slid it across the table. "What's this?" "Your birthday card. The one I never finished." Inside, a single line read, "The real gift is learning to love without fear." My throat tightened. "Is that goodbye?" "It's what I thought I'd say," she whispered. "But now I'm not sure." I stood up and offered my hand. "Then let's find out." We stepped outside together into the rain. She didn't protest when I pulled her close under the umbrella. Her breath trembled against my chest. "I'm scared," she admitted. "Me too," I said. "But maybe that's how we know it matters." She laughed softly. "You're supposed to be the steady one. I'll be steady enough for both of us." The cafe lights blurred behind us, the street glistening like wet glass. She lifted her face toward mine, and the kiss that followed wasn't dramatic or rushed. It was gentle, certain, the kind that feels like coming home. When we broke apart, I brushed a strand of hair from her cheek. "So, are you still selling the house?" "Maybe not today," I smiled. "I'll take that." We walked in silence, hand in hand, the umbrella barely covering us. Every step felt like reclaiming something we'd both lost. Trust, hope, the right to start over. At her gate, she stopped. "Noah," she said, "if this falls apart, it won't." I interrupted. "Not if we keep showing up." She looked at me for a long moment, then nodded. "Then show up tomorrow." "I will." That night, lying in bed, I watched the rain streak down my window. For the first time, the sound didn't make me restless. It sounded like peace. I thought about how it had all begun. A joke on my birthday, a bottle of wine, a neighbor who said I'd grown up. I hadn't realized then that she wasn't just talking about my age. She was talking about this learning to love someone messy, brave, and real. Maybe that was the gift she'd promised. The chance to grow into the kind of man who doesn't run from love, no matter how complicated it gets. And as the rain softened outside, I smiled to myself, knowing one thing for sure. Sometimes the best gifts don't come wrapped. They knock on your door, smile and say, "Now I see you're all grown."